Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, we're going to be talking about the business of photography. And so today's entrepreneur is actually a newcomer to Edmonton and Canada, and also a newcomer to the whole entrepreneurial journey, I guess you could say, too. So a pretty new business. And I'm really excited to talk to Abi about her experiences. So welcome to the show, Abi Ajibola, who is the creative director and owner of Memoir Photography.
Thank you for having me.
So, Abi, first off, I'd really like to hear what you think are three things that every entrepreneur needs to know.
Yeah, thank you. That's such an interesting question because if you leave me to sit down and think, I'm like, there's so many things, right? But I like that you narrowed it down to three because honestly, at the end of the day, there are always just a few things. I think one of the things an entrepreneur needs to know is, first of all, what problem are you here to solve? Why are you doing what you're doing? Because if you don't know why, you're going to face so many challenges that at the end of the day, you're just going to throw in the towel and just move on and go pick up a job because that's always easier. You get it all fixed, from day one. And so you need to know why you're doing what you're doing. It needs to be convincing enough for you to go ahead. So I think that's the very first thing. The second thing every entrepreneur needs to know is that they need to be resilient, right? Because again, like I said, you're going to face so many challenges. You may think you have it all figured out. You may have the perfect business plan. You may have the funding, and then you just begin to have challenges that you never anticipated. So you need to just be resilient. Pick up yourself and move, right? Sometimes when you get those blows, you want to give up. And then sometimes you just need to take 24, 48 hours and move on. And then you realize that because it never stops, you're going to keep facing challenges. But as you keep going through that cycle, it gets easier to get back up, to bounce back up, right? So maybe before it took you 3 days and then later 2 days. At some point it's 1 hour, maybe 5 minutes, So, and if you don't keep at it, you're never going to get better. So that's definitely one of the things that you need to be resilient, right? And the third most important thing, one of the most important things that I think is asking for help. So as a new business owner, for me right now, for the most part, I'm a solopreneur. So I do outsource a number of parts or functions, but I'm still the one who is in charge and responsible for everything. But I'm learning right now to lean on other people, to ask for help, to get, your network. You get a coach if you need to, because if you work in an organization, you probably have other teammates and all of that stuff. But a coach can sort of like get on board, right? And so you need help, ask for help. You definitely need that.
Yeah, and I think that is something that a lot of people have a challenge doing, which is really such a misplaced concern about asking for help, because there is so much help out there, and it's just, I think, human nature to want to support and help other people. And so this is one of the things that I often teach or try to mentor young entrepreneurs on is exactly that. Like, just ask, because framing something that's in the sense of, can you do me a favor? Would you mind answering this for me, or helping me with this, or supporting me in this way? It's just really difficult for us as a human being, I think, to say no. And so I don't know if it's a thing where we lack the confidence, or we have a lot of fear that we're overstepping our bounds or whatnot. But
exactly. I think that's very much it. The fear of rejection. I can say one of my biggest fears is a fear of failure. And I had to just face that, right? So my background, I've always had like a corporate job. I worked in a bank for about 12 years. And so I've always been behind the scene, business strategy, business analysis, data, Excel. Those are kind of my jam. And so having to come face to face with people was such a new terrain for me. And so that fear of rejection, or, keep putting yourself out there, it can be scary, right? So, but again, if you have a coach, for example, or you have somebody, even if you need to pay for it, whatever, and you expose yourself to those environments, even a network of fellow entrepreneurs, they begin to push you and you realize, you know what, that was a great move. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
So it's really fair, really.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about memoir photography, your business. You
Mhm.
started this about 2.5 years ago.
Yes.
There are a number of different photographers in different types or segments of the industry. So tell me,
Mhm.
what problems does memoir photography solve then?
Yeah, so memoirs photography, the problem we solve basically is taking beautiful portraits of family, of people, like everyday people. And I like to use the word everyday people because you see beautiful pictures everywhere and you feel like, oh, they look so glamorous, maybe like the Kardashians, they're all celebrities and stuff. But one of the things I like to say is come in and be a celebrity for a day. So all those things you see in the magazines or things that you love, right? We're able to make sure that you have that experience and have those beautiful photos. One of the what I say it's kind of like a formula I thought about one day and I'm like, it makes total sense. It's kind of like love and beauty,
Mhm.
gives joy. I just love anything beautiful. I
Yeah.
love to laugh a lot. I love to be in an environment that makes me laugh. One of the things I like to do with my kids is I can tell them turn some music on, I tell them to start dancing. And I'm just really smiling and watching people happy. So yeah, I love to celebrate that love, that bond, because sometimes you see, we look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't even see what other people see. We don't see that beauty. We've been through so much. So I love to reintroduce you to yourself, let you see that you're beautiful, you're great, you're a winner, and appreciate those relationships around you, your family, and all of that stuff. Yeah. So I like to phrase a moment in time, beautiful moments for families. That's what we do.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so interesting, even as powerful as these things have gotten, and the computational photography that's going on within these algorithms and all the sensors and everything else, which allows us to capture, photographs or moments in time in a different way than what we've ever been able to. There still is such an art in posing and framing people, and that'll never go away in terms of the
Absolutely.
need, right? And because I think that's one thing where, as the technology advances in any industry, there's
Yeah.
always this like, okay, well, is it going to displace people who are, have traditionally been working within those spaces? What are your thoughts on that, and just in general in photography? Is the machine going to replace you, or is it something where there's just too much of an art form to it to be replaced by a machine?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought this question up. So I'm just wondering, I'm just curious. Let me throw this back. Do we think at some point in time, maybe you can marry a robot, like a machine, right? So just because, again, and that's why as a photographer, like you said, I love the word you said, art form. It really is an art. And I had to remind myself that I'm an artist, but I'm also a business person. So there are two parts to it. But the art, you cannot
Mm,
overemphasize that. There's a relational part to it. So one of the things, the feedback I always get from my clients is the fact that I'm so personable. They had fun, so even before you see your photos, the experience itself is such a big deal. I have people giving
mm.
me hugs after their photo shoots. I have them sending me emails, thank you so much, we had such a good time, and they haven't even seen the photos. So again, it's those things that bring out those emotions you want to see in the pictures. It's not really about the technical perfection. Smartphones are doing great, but then again, if a professional photographer maybe handles a camera in front of someone and somebody who isn't, you're not likely to get the same pictures, right? So your most important tool as a photographer is your eye and your person. You need to be able to make people. I have a lot of clients that come and say, I'm so nervous, and then they're done and they had a fantastic time.
Yeah.
So again, you have to bring that person, that relationship, that joy, and bring out those emotions. I don't know yet that a machine can do that.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree. And so the other thing that I'd like to just dig in a little bit
Sure.
more on is that what you were saying is that you are an artist, but
Mhm.
also a business person. So you have to wear those two hats, which are
Absolutely.
which are very different parts of the brain, right?
Brain,
The
yes.
different sides of the brain that are
Mhm.
really you're tapping into at different times within your overall business. And
Mhm.
so Is that, do you think, more of a challenge for people who are business people within a creative industry, or providing a creative service? Or do you think that there's advantages that come from having that flexing that you're doing every day?
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest challenges in
Yeah.
art. I think that's why some of the most talented artists, painting, whatever, are pretty poor because that part of their brain is so developed that they can't really, work with the other part. And again, like we said, get help, right? Maybe you don't realize you do need that help. But I have to consciously remind myself each time that I'm a business person. I'm an artist, but I'm a business owner.
Mm.
And so it can be such a huge challenge because, like you said, there are different parts of the brain, but you need to constantly wear the heart of both or get help when you need to. It's something that you just need to juggle. But I think it can be a huge, for me, having a business background, it kind of like balances me out. And so I think as a creative entrepreneur, like an artist and all of that stuff, you need to realize where you're deficient and keep working more on that. So if you need more on the art form, you need to keep working on your art. If you need more on the business, keep working on that or get help,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
is a challenge for sure.
Yeah, and I think you'd said at the beginning that you were working in a much more of an analytical kind of profession
Mhm.
prior to transitioning into a photography business. And so, is the photography something that you were doing as a hobby that you had a passion for, or is this just one day you decided, you know what, I'm just going to do something completely different than what I've been doing so far in my career?
Yeah. So it was a hobby. So I grew up having beautiful photos around my house. My mom was very particular about documenting moments. So in the days of film and all of that stuff. So I grew up with pictures around, and then I just stumbled on someone saying a friend was going for training for photography. And I'm like, okay, I have some spare time to spare. And I learned around all of that. So I pretty much started as a hobby. As I was starting my career as a banker, I was also doing the photography by the side. But again, it wasn't really a business. I was earning some side income from that, for sure. And all those experiences pretty much helped me, but I couldn't give my all. I couldn't do it as often as I wanted to. I, got married and had 3 kids in between, so was always on and off. And my job was a full-time role, maybe like 7 a.m. to about 6, 7 p.m. So it was pretty tough. But yes, I was always in touch. So it was definitely a hobby and a side business for me before now.
Yeah, wow. Talk about persistence to be able to, handle, juggle 3 children and the maternity times through all that, and the full-time job that's taking you into 7 o'clock in the evenings, and then trying to refine the skill that you have to have to
Yeah.
be delivering in a business like photography. Like, that's just amazing that you're able to get it off the ground. Really, that's really
Yeah. So can I also say something? So for me, as I was like you said, it's crazy challenging. It was helpful back in Nigeria. I had like family to support and everything. So with the kids, it was a bit easier, sort of, but I didn't really have a life. And I was getting to the point where I knew I needed to make a decision. I'm one of those people that I really hate to be sort of like mediocre in something. I felt like I wasn't doing my best because I didn't have that time. And
Mhm.
again, I was an employee, so I wanted to give my best to my employer because that's what they pay me for. So I knew I needed to decide, right? But when it was getting close to the time that we realized that we were going to move as a family to Canada, I felt like, you know what, this is a fresh opportunity for me to try this out. I'd considered a different point in time to do this full time, but I couldn't, for different reasons,
Yeah.
financial and all that stuff, because my income was significant. I'm like, okay, with these kids, we cannot take that risk. So when we were trying to move on, I'm like, this is such a great opportunity. I'm going to take that risk and start. So I did come and I almost started looking for a full-time job here as an analyst. And then I just didn't feel right within me. I felt, don't blow this. You're never going to go back if you go this direction, right? And so, and I'm thankful for Canada, where there's so many institutions and support and things that encourage entrepreneurs. And so it made it a bit, inviting to try it out. It was
Yeah.
less risky, I'll say. And, I told you about my fear of failure. So one
Yeah.
of the things that helped me, I told myself, you know what, if you fail, if it doesn't work, you pick up a certificate, go look for a job. That's not the end of the world, but you will know you had tried. I'm like, you only live once. You don't want to get to your dying bed and feel like maybe I would have been great at this. And I
Yeah.
never tried it out. And so
Yeah.
that helped me make that decision.
Yeah, we have to make sure that we have an eye on living our lives without regrets, right? And
Absolutely.
so that would have been a huge regret if you
Yeah.
didn't do it. Yeah. Now you and I had met probably about 2, 3 weeks ago, I guess it would have been, at the Alberta Awards of Distinction. You at the time were a finalist for the Newcomers Award, which is just absolutely fantastic to be or recognized
Yeah.
in that way. And so you've been in business for 2.5 years.
Mm.
You're a newcomer to this country. How long have you been in Canada?
3 years on May 16th. So that's about 3 years and 2 months, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my son's 7th birthday. Yeah.
And so yeah, so you took your first 6 months here in Canada, kind of
Mm,
get yourself grounded, and then you started your business.
mm,
And before we hit the record button, I shared with you that like entrepreneurship is hard. Starting businesses, running businesses is hard. And the success rate of small businesses is also extremely low. Just because of all those difficulties that one has that you face into. Now, to do that in a new country without the support systems that you had, in the country in which you are born into, with all the family and understanding the culture and understanding the language and everything else really well, and having that network to draw upon, like it's just so daunting. So for
yeah.
you to take that all on because you're like, you know what, I'm going to regret it if I don't. I have such a drive inside me to do this. That's just absolutely fascinating to me. So to have that strength, and so where does that strength come from to just step outside, like completely outside of your comfort zone? I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was completely out of my comfort zone. I think my strength comes from seeing my mother. So I was brought up by a single mom, and she pretty much did everything. She was a teacher. She was an English teacher. She and later became a principal. She had some businesses on the side. Had 3 kids to cater for. So she was always working, right? So I never, like I said, I've never even sat down to just do something, even when I was, like I told you, a corporate employee. I always had something by the side. I don't know. I guess it just comes from knowing that I can do better. I keep pushing myself to do better. I'm pretty confident that, if this person can do it, I probably can too. So I guess growing up seeing strong women, I was raised by strong women all over, and it motivates me.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really interested in your answer to this next question, and that is
Okay.
if you could pen yourself a letter, right, and
Mhm,
send that back to yourself at the time in which you were starting your business, so 2.5 years ago,
mhm,
um, would you like what would be in that letter? What would you be advising that younger self? And I know it's not a very long time ago, but I
mhm.
mean, you started your business at the very like in the middle of the pandemic as well,
Yeah,
in the new
yeah,
country,
yeah.
and everything else is going on. So it's just fascinating to me. So that I think we've accelerated our experience through COVID just because everything seems to have been really accelerated. So in those 2.5 years, it to me anyway, it felt like in some sense just a blink, but it also felt like 5 years.
Yeah.
So simultaneously, so it's really interesting. So what would you have advised yourself, the younger, fresh entrepreneur?
Yeah. I think I'll just basically say take your time,
Hmm.
build, and learn, keep learning. Don't be in a hurry to get started. You're going to do awesome. You're going to be phenomenal. Take your time to learn, to build structure, get into those networks, get those relationships going, and keep learning, keep building your confidence, because beyond whatever product you sell, you start by selling yourself and having that self-confidence and building your self-value. And that's what people will see and respond to in your business. So take the time to do that, and get ready to just do awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Really cool. Now, when it comes to, starting a business, there's, like, and I look at your website and the photography that you have there. It looks to me that a lot of the people that are in the gallery are people from your community, from the Nigerian community here in Edmonton, potentially, or the African community anyway. And so it's just natural for us to be drawing upon the people within our culture or within our communities that we currently have. And so as a newcomer, it must be difficult to kind of branch out beyond that. Would you say that that's one of your biggest challenges? And if so, how are you planning to overcome that?
Yeah, that's definitely one of my biggest challenges, if not the biggest. And I keep working on each time and thinking on and brainstorming and trying to find different ways to break in. I'm so thankful for my community because, again, sometimes when you start something and you don't get a response, it can be very discouraging. But so they came in and, loved my work and started supporting, and it kept giving me the confidence to keep moving on. So that's kind of like what I say, the low hanging fruit that came to me a bit easier, right? But I know again that the larger communities, the larger Canadian communities are open and willing to try new things. They just need to know you're there and get that confidence that you can do it. So one of the strategies I'm working on currently, for example, is collaboration and partnerships, and getting into those organizations that already have a group of people that are my targets, markets that will love what I do, and get those relationships going and get those connections. But that's definitely one of my biggest challenges. I've had in trickles, other communities have had, so of course, when you look at my portfolio, you're just going to see them, they're dark skinned, you don't know where they're from. So I've had people from Caribbeans and other non-Nigerian communities, as well as, other more generic, other more, what's the word now? The larger Canadian diverse community. So when I do, for example, in the Christmas, which, you might not see on my website, I had a lot of people from the Filipino, from, to the other, Canadian communities come as well. Than my typical. And then again, one of the things is also the celebrations, right? In Nigeria, in Africa, we love to celebrate a lot. So having a photo session is a big deal. But for the typical Canadian, probably not. Maybe during just a cake smash, and maybe they'll do that for the outdoor photos during fall and stuff, and then Christmas. So I get quite a larger, diverse response for mini sessions, like my Christmas minis and stuff like that. But it's
Yeah.
definitely a challenge, and I'm working on that.
Well, and I also noticed on your website that you have a category of projects that you're working on. And so one of them in particular right now is 40 over 40, I think is what it was called. And so that must be a strategy too, to really try to branch out a little bit beyond the community, right? Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely, yes. So it's one of the strategies to get everybody. The criteria to be part of is, one, you have to be female, two, you have to be over the age of 40. And so that's one of the things. But beyond that, the project is principally the 40 over 40 project is principally just to celebrate women in this stage of their lives. And we're all beautiful, you're unique in yourself, right? I like to use this phrase that says, beauty does not fade with age, it only changes, right? So you have many people in that category that don't feel beautiful anymore. They don't feel like there's really anything to feel great about. And the responses have been overwhelming. I see people, because one of the questions to ask you, because you have to apply to be a part of it, and you answer one of the questions like, why do you want to be, what are you celebrating? Why do you want to be a part of this? And I have responses like, oh, I've gone through a difficult divorce. Oh, I'm celebrating life after maybe 37 years of working, so it's just about giving yourself some self-love. Women are generally givers to their families, to their career, to their partners, and all of that stuff. So it's just about give yourself something, enjoy, have fun, enjoy every stage you are in, even if you're 65, you're 40, you're 80, you're beautiful. enjoy it,
Yeah.
enjoy every wrinkle, every experience, every story you've been through.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so one thing that I'd like to wrap up with in terms of questions is really exploring how entrepreneurs start their days, because I think that there is, my theory anyway, some sort of correlation between the way that we start our days and the way that we're able to accomplish all the things that we do. So I'm really curious, what is your ritual, I guess, or what do you do at the very start of your day?
Right. This is one of the challenges I had to face head on when I started as an entrepreneur. I'm like, you've got to get this together, otherwise you're not getting anywhere. And I think I've made quite some progress. So my routine is usually I wake up at about 5:36 in the morning. I take an hour to have like a quiet time. I'm Christian, so I do stuff like that. And it also gives me some moment to reflect before my kids are up and the whole house goes crazy. So I get some of my great ideas at those moments. I make some of my great decisions, like the decision to go into this full time. I made that at one of those times, right? So I take like an hour for myself, get my kids ready and stuff, and at this particular time, I tend to resume at 9 a.m. I come to start working. Now I have different blocks for my work. And one of the tricks I realized is that you've got to attack there's this saying in Yoruba, that's in Nigeria language, that if you're gonna like, if you want to do something uncomfortable, do it quick and fast. So the hardest part of my work, and that will bring the greatest results, I do it early in the morning, my deep block, and I have those blocked
Yeah.
out. And then I've had to then I take breaks, maybe after about 2 hours, just to refresh. The break may be leaving my computer and doing something physical in the studio and something. And so I do all of that. And then I have blocks for like my meetings and everything. I try to do them later in the day when my energy is not as high, even though I'm still productive, but at least it's a bit more refreshing talking to somebody than sitting down and writing and strategizing and coming up with stuff. So I do those very deep work in the morning and then others later in the day. And of course, for the days that I have sessions and everything shoots, it's a little bit different, but again, it's structured.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The structure is so important, and that is definitely something that's common amongst most entrepreneurs, I find as well. And so, yeah, so you're first thing in the morning, you're taking some time for yourself, really
Yes.
trying to, it sounds like almost meditate,
Yes, I do
right?
that.
Yeah, and then really tackling then the biggest challenge first, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your story, Abby. I am just thrilled to have newcomer entrepreneurs on this podcast because, like I said, I think it's difficult enough. And then you throw in even another layer or two of complexity. And it's just such a daunting thing. And I think it's remarkable that the entrepreneurial spirit is so strong, where it's like, I don't care how difficult this is going to be. We're just going to do it because I'm driven to do this. And
Mhm.
so that's really exciting and really inspiring. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much for having me. You're doing an awesome job. Thank you for creating a platform for entrepreneurs to talk about their businesses and their passions. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I get so much out of it myself. Now, if somebody wanted to reach out to you and book a session or learn more about what you're doing over there at Memoir Photography, what's the best way for them to do so?
The best way is just to go to my website.
Yeah.
That's memoirsphotography.ca. That's MEMOIRS. Photography, PHOTOGRAPHY.ca, right? That's memoirsphotography.ca. Or you can go to Instagram, that's at memoirs, MEMOIRS_photography. Either of those ways, you'll definitely get in touch.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And for those of you who enjoyed this episode, if you want to check out some other entrepreneurial stories, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca, and that's where you're going to find the archive. And there's also an application form there if you happen to be an entrepreneur with a great story or who wants to share your journey with everybody else. Just fill out that application form and you could find yourself on a future episode of Amplify Your Business. So until next time, everybody have a prosperous day.